Whether it's rockets, cars, or AI, Elon Musk builds every company using the same unbreakable playbook. In this episode, we uncover how those ideas translate into real, repeatable lessons for anyone building a product or starting a company. His core principles that made him build billion-dollar empires. Today, we are undertaking a bit of a mission, really. We want to cut through probably one of the noisiest figures in modern business.
You mean Elon Musk?
Exactly, Elon Musk. But, and this is key, we are deliberately leaving all the distractions, the politics, the tweets, all the constant controversies. We're leaving that outside the room.
Right. Our focus needs to be laser sharp.
Yes. We're looking exclusively at the core, kind of timeless and relentlessly applied principles he's used over, 3 decades now, and across at least 7 major companies.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
We spent, maybe 60 plus hours reading, editing, just distilling this stuff down. We wanted only the enduring ideas, the actual mechanics, the how of his operations.
I keep thinking of that classic metaphor, Michelangelo carving David. Someone asked him how he did it, and he supposedly said, "I just chipped away everything that was not David." And that feels like what we've tried to do here.
I like that. You get to see these ideas being born, essentially.
Yeah. You see the first version of that work ethic, the strategy, way back at Zip2 in the 90s.
And then you watch those ideas get sharper at PayPal. And then, crucially, you see them scale up and almost codified, like an operating algorithm, almost religious in its application at SpaceX and Tesla.
That chronological tracing, I think, makes it almost impossible not to understand the fundamental architecture of how he operates. And for anyone listening who's interested in leadership or strategy or just, building anything significant, this offers that kind of profound aha moment.
What kind of moment?
The realization that, historical giants, people like Andrew Carnegie or Henry Ford, they often arrived at very similar conclusions about intensity and control just decades apart.
It's the recurring patterns.
Exactly. So let's not wait. Let's dive right in. Where does it start? The early foundations.
Yeah, let's start there. Zip2 and PayPal. Something established way before his business career even really kicked off. Back in college, actually.
Okay.
It's this mindset of being, quote, wired for war.
Wired for war. That sounds intense. Was it just about being tough?
Well, yes and no. It wasn't just an attitude. It was rooted in how he relaxed, believe it or not, and how he trained strategically.
Relaxed by being wired for war.
Kind of. He was obsessed with these really intense strategy games, that incredibly complex board game.
Oh yeah, alliances, betrayals, resource management. It's brutal.
Exactly. And immersing himself in games like that became his main way to both escape stress, but also simultaneously hone his tactical skills. He wasn't just playing for fun.
It was training.
He was training his strategic thinking for the long game of business. And when he reflected on why this felt so core to who he was, he apparently repeated this maxim across decades. I am wired for war.
Wow. Okay. And the immediate consequence of being wired for war, what was that in practice?
An absolute intolerance for deference.
Yeah.
Right from his early 20s. He wasn't naturally cooperative or collaborative in the way we normally think about it.
Meaning?
It just wasn't in his nature to work for other people or to just assume someone else knew more simply because they had a title or they were older.
That sounds difficult early on.
It probably was. But that trait is crucial, right?
Right.
Because it's the root of that relentless need for ultimate control we see later. If you don't instinctively trust authority or traditional expertise, which he clearly didn't, then, you feel you have to assume control over every variable yourself.
Which leads straight into his hardcore operating principle, right? The Zip2 stories.
That's it. He didn't just talk about hard work. He modeled this extreme self-deprivation. We all know the stories, sleeping under desks.
Rolling up to the local YMCA for a shower.
Exactly. And this wasn't just, a temporary startup thing. This established the physical, relentless pace that would define every single company he built after that.
He had outright contempt for work-life balance.
It's blunt, yeah. He drove himself like crazy and expected exactly the same impossible standard from everyone on his team. And the irony. His only real indulgence mentioned was these intense video game binges.
Which, as you said, were probably just more strategy training.
Pretty much. Deep dives into complex systems, not really chilling out.
Okay, so you've got this insane intensity. You constantly need to attract money, talent. How did he do that? This is where the showmanship comes in.
Showmanship is salesmanship for him. an insight he learned early and used for decades.
Is this the Zip2 computer rack story?
That's the one. It's almost funny. They were desperate to look credible, right? To show potential investors they were doing hardcore stuff, even though they were tiny.
So what did they do?
They got this huge, elaborate external frame, the kind meant for massive industrial computer racks. And then they just placed one small standard computer inside this giant casing.
No way. So investors walk in.
See this massive rack, and they assume, wow, these guys have some serious server power. When really, it was pure theater.
A dramatic demonstration.
Precisely. Designed purely to convey seriousness, ambition, and that theatrical streak using visuals, drama, to convey the sheer magnitude of the ambition. That's a tactic you see again and again. Product launches at Tesla, SpaceX, that's all there.
And managing people with this intensity, he decided early on that the mission was more important than, well, being nice.
Pretty much. Mission over camaraderie. He seemed to believe that being overly collegial, too friendly, was actually counterproductive, dangerous even, because it just slowed things down. It got in the way of the mission.
So he was mission first, remorseless, you said.
Almost remorseless in applying that intensity. He genuinely didn't care if he offended people or intimidated them or pushed them way past their comfort zone, as long as that drive led to accomplishing things they thought were impossible.
Which led to that maxim.
It's not your job to make people on your team love you.
That focus on the purity of the mission, it connects back to his need for ultimate control, doesn't it? And the anti-middleman philosophy.
Absolutely. He believed, and the quote is something like, true product people have a compulsion to sell directly to consumers without middlemen mudding things up.
So any intermediary, a dealer, distributor, even a third-party supplier
is just another layer. Potential inefficiency, complexity, and critically, a loss of control. That desire for total vertical integration, controlling everything from the car software to the rocket engine's design, it really starts right there back at Zip2 and PayPal.
And the Zip2 success, selling it, that sets up a pattern, right? The fueling cycle.
Yeah. They sold Zip2. Musk got, what, $22 million cash?
Yeah.
At age 27? Which is staggering.
But the money wasn't the main thing.
Seems not. The key insight is that the cash was almost a secondary byproduct. The real motivator was the satisfaction of building something real, that sense of accomplishment.
And what do you do with the fuel?
You pour it straight into the next game. He immediately took almost all of that $22 million and plowed it back into X.com, which, became PayPal.
That establishes the insane risk tolerance.
Totally. He was quoted saying something like, I'm either going to be wealthy or broke, but it's not going to be anything in between.
It's fascinating how that exact theme popped up again decades later, when he bought Twitter.
It's the same mechanism, isn't it? Using a massive pile of cash to tackle a huge, complex, company-sized problem, fueling the next game, whatever the personal financial risk.
Wild. And the final piece from this early stage, the belief part.
The power of belief, yeah. Even when his ideas sounded completely nuts, like crazy talk to outsiders, people around him tended to believe him. Why? Because he believed it with such utter burning intensity.
He could transfer his conviction.
He has this unique, almost magnetic ability to do just that, to make others buy into his certainty.
Okay, so PayPal sells, big payday again, and then the ambition just goes stratospheric.
Literally, stratospheric. He leaves behind financial software and suddenly declares his mission is, well, colonizing Mars, making mankind a multiplanetary civilization.
That's quite a leap.
It's a total shift in scale. We go from building successful companies to trying to remake entire industries, maybe even ensure the species' survival.
And this is where that mission first, finance later idea really takes hold.
Absolutely. This is the moment where the mission becomes utterly divorced from normal financial planning. He's starting with a mission of, you could say, epoch-making significance, a mandate from heaven, some might interpret it.
Essential for humanity's survival and progress.
Right. He seems to believe life has to be about pursuing these huge dreams, not just solving small, incremental problems. And the business model, the finances, that's something he figures out later. He kind of backfills the financials to fit the massive scope of the mission.
But it wasn't just wishful thinking, was it? This grand vision, it was grounded in something practical.
Immediately grounded in devouring knowledge. When he decided, okay, I'm starting SpaceX, he didn't just hire a bunch of consultants.
What did he do?
He went to the Palo Alto library and literally devoured entire shelves of books on rocketry, aerospace engineering, physics.
Wow. Just taught himself.
Pretty much. And that detail, that tells you everything about how he tackles a new field. It's like those historical founders, right?
Yeah.
Thomas Edison consuming all the research, Edwin Land diving deep into optics.
For Musk, this intense self-directed learning is step one. It's the prerequisite before you can even think about challenging the established way of doing things in a new industry.
Exactly. And he coupled that knowledge binge with strategic placement,
Meaning moving
to LA.
He knew the odds of succeeding in rocketry were already incredibly low. So he reasoned you have to increase those odds however you can. Where was the critical mass of aerospace talent? The engineers, the suppliers in the US?
Los Angeles. So he moved his base of operations there. He understood you have to be where the action is, where the talent pool is, even if it means a massive personal upheaval.
The anecdote about not really explaining the move to his first wife, Justine, that kind of underscores the focus, doesn't it?
Elon was not bred for domestic tranquility. The mission trumped everything.
Okay, so this intense, knowledge-first approach leads him to one of his most powerful tools. First, principles thinking, especially applied to costs.
Right, first principles thinking. It's all about stripping away assumptions, ignoring how things have always been done. You drill down to the absolute basic physics of what you're trying to build.
Like starting from atoms and molecules.
Almost. You start there and build up logically rather than just iterating on existing industry practices. And when he applied this to the cost of rockets, he developed what he called the idiot index.
The idiot index, I love that name. Explain it again.
It's devastatingly simple, really. How much more does the finished product cost compared to the raw cost of its basic materials, like the aluminum, the titanium, the fuel, whatever?
And for rockets?
The index was sky high. Astronomical, often 50 times more expensive than the sum of their parts.
50 times.
Yeah, and that calculation was his way in. If that ratio is so enormous, it screams that the industry is just loaded with inefficiency, bureaucracy, middlemen, outdated manufacturing.
It's ripe for disruption using first principles.
Exactly. And he became absolutely obsessed with driving that index down. The focus is just undeniable. The word cost shows up 158 times in the source material. It's constant.
And this cost obsession, it's not entirely new in the world of industry titans, is it? There's a historical parallel here.
Oh, absolutely. The sources draw a really clear line back to Andrew Carnegie, the steel magnate.
Carnegie's mantra
Was simple. Profits go up and down. They depend on the market, demand, things you can't fully control. But cost savings, those are permanent. They're strictly controllable. They're tied directly to your own internal efficiency.
So Musk, maybe without even knowing it, was running the Carnegie playbook. Watch the costs.
Pretty much. Watch the costs, and the profits will take care of themselves eventually.
And this obsession, this need for control over costs, it directly drives his whole strategy of vertical integration, right? Doing everything in-house at both Tesla and SpaceX.
If you're obsessed with cost and you're obsessed with control, you just cannot outsource critical components. You can't risk a supplier ripping you off or delaying your schedule or delivering shoddy quality.
So you bring it all in-house.
As much as humanly possible. You want to manufacture everything yourself to control your destiny, the quality, the costs, the whole supply chain. It's aggressively anti-outsourcing.
Which feels radical today, but again, historically.
It's a throwback. Henry Ford did the exact same thing initially. Ford owned rubber plantations, glass factories, even the railroad to bring in raw materials. Total control.
And Musk, decades later, basically took the auto and aerospace industries back to that model of total in-house control.
Fascinating. And once he had these two huge companies, SpaceX and Tesla, running on this similar philosophy, he started cross-pollinating ideas between them.
Transferring knowledge.
Yeah, constantly. He'd take techniques learned in the super high-stakes world of rockets at SpaceX and immediately tell the Tesla team to try them, and vice versa.
Like the soft oven example.
That's a perfect one. They developed a specific soft oven process at SpaceX for making carbon fiber parts. He immediately told the Tesla team, hey, use that oven technique. If one team solved a tough manufacturing problem, facing totally different physical challenges maybe, that knowledge instantly became a resource for the entire system.
Which just speeds everything up. Both companies benefit simultaneously.
Exactly. It's a powerful flywheel effect.
Okay, this brings us to the real nuts and bolts, the actual mechanics of his process. It starts with how the teams are even structured, right?
Yeah.
Integrated teams, immediate feedback.
That's fundamental. His core belief is that your design teams, your engineering teams, and your manufacturing teams must be physically located together.
Not in different buildings or different states.
Absolutely not. He believes separating them is just a recipe for total dysfunction. Ultimately, it leads to business failure.
He had that analogy, the hot stove effect.
Yeah, it's quite vivid. If your hand touches a hot stove, you yank it back instantly, right?
Yeah.
The feedback loop is immediate. Pain, reaction.
Okay.
But imagine a designer creates a part that's really difficult or painful to assemble, that's the hot stove. But the assembly line worker who actually suffers the pain, maybe they're thousands of miles away.
The feedback loop is broken, or at least incredibly slow.
Exactly. The designer never feels the heat. So the mistakes, the awkward designs, they just fester, they become institutionalized. That's why he insists the assembly workers must be able to immediately collar a designer or engineer, literally grab them and ask, why the heck did you design it this way?
That sounds confrontational.
It probably is. But it forces immediate accountability and learning.
And that thinking leads directly into the very first non-negotiable step of his codified operating algorithm, questioning requirements.
Absolutely non-negotiable. Every single specification, every rule, every piece of documentation that dictates how something must be done, it all has to be questioned.
Everything.
Everything is treated only as a recommendation initially. The only requirements he considers immutable, unchangeable, are those literally decreed by the laws of physics. Everything else is fair game for deletion.
How do you make sure people actually challenge the rules, especially established ones?
He forces the engineers to drill down. It's not good enough to say, oh, the military requires this, or legal says we have to do that. They have to know the actual name of the person who created that requirement.
The specific person, why?
So they can go talk to them. Understand the original context, the reasoning behind it. Was it still valid? Was it based on an old assumption?
That prevents requirements from just living on zombie-like in the system.
Exactly. And here's a really critical insight he shared, especially for you listening. He warned that requirements created by smart people are the most dangerous.
Why smart people? Wouldn't their requirements be better?
You'd think so. But people are naturally less likely to question a rule or assumption made by someone they perceive as highly intelligent or highly credentialed. They just assume it must be right, purely out of deference or reverence for the source.
So you have to be extra skeptical of requirements from smart people. Interesting.
Definitely. But this whole system, challenging requirements, redesigning, integrating teams, it all operates under one overriding command.
Let me guess. Speed.
A maniacal sense of urgency. That's the operational fuel. His exact phrase is, a maniacal sense of urgency is our operating principle. If you boil down the biography to its most repeated piece of advice, seriously, half the book would just be him telling people constantly, go faster, faster. What's fascinating is the result. Even though his companies apparently missed most of the absolutely insane deadlines he set,
They still achieved more.
his teams universally admitted, according to the sources, that they still beat all their competitors in terms of speed of iteration and how quickly they ultimately got things done.
Yeah.
That massive, relentless push, even if the specific deadline slipped, it resulted in world-beating progress.
Because the baseline pace was just so much higher than anyone else's.
Precisely. And he embodies this urgency himself by acting as a frontline general.
Meaning he's in the trenches.
He believes the leader must be at the point of greatest friction. He's down on the factory floor. He's literally under the rockets sometimes. He leads from the absolute front.
And that inspires people.
His willingness to be there, working all night, every night if needed, apparently inspires this fierce loyalty and dedication of the engineers. But it's coupled with this uncompromising demand for detail.
He expects everyone to know their stuff cold.
Absolutely cold. All the specific metrics, the technical minutiae of their part of the business, and he will apparently erupt in what the book calls a searing fury. If people can't give him specific technical answers on the spot, you can't bluff the frontline general.
Wow. Okay. Maintaining that pace, that intensity over decades.
Yeah.
It must require incredible resilience.
Superhuman resilience and capacity to take pain is a recurring theme. Michael Moritz from Sequoia Capital, right?
Yeah.
A really savvy, experienced Silicon Valley VC.
He backed PayPal, right?
Made money off Musk with PayPal, yeah.
Yeah.
But even Moritz admitted later that he underestimated Musk's sheer determination. He called the idea of Tesla competing seriously against giants like Toyota in manufacturing mission impossible. He just couldn't fathom the level of grit required.
And the sources show what that resilience actually cost him personally, right? Especially during the 2008 crisis.
Oh yeah, that period was brutal. Both SpaceX and Tesla were teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. SpaceX had crashed 3 rockets in a row. His back was completely against the wall.
And what did he do?
He just doubled down, declared he would never give up. He said he would go for broke, pouring the very last of his personal fortune from the PayPal sale into keeping both companies alive.
The physical toll must have been immense.
Terrifying, apparently. His second wife, Tallulah Riley, described him having actual night terrors during the peak of that crisis. Flailing his arms, screaming in his sleep, even vomiting. That's the literal physical price of keeping that wired for war setting switched on constantly under extreme pressure.
Unbelievable. And yet, even at that absolute low point, those earlier connections mattered, didn't they? The PayPal network.
That's a great point. The strategic relationships he'd forged back in the PayPal days, even with the people who had kind of led the coup against him.
Like Peter Thiel and the Founders Fund guys.
Exactly. He had apparently stayed reasonably friendly with them, and they came through. They secured a crucial $20 million investment that literally kept SpaceX alive at its darkest hour.
So even when you're totally mission-focused, maintaining those high-level strategic relationships is still critical for survival.
Absolutely. You never know when you'll need that lifeline.
Okay, so 2008 was a near-death experience. But the real trial by fire for his operating algorithm, the true crucible, was probably production hell, right? Trying to ramp up the Model 3.
That seems to be the consensus. That period was make or break for Tesla.
And the survival mandate was crystal clear.
Absolutely. Tesla had to hit 5,000 Model 3s per week. He repeated that number constantly, like a mantra, the book says, to every executive, every engineer, every factory worker, ensuring that urgency was felt by absolutely everyone.
And his leadership response, how did he tackle it?
Total immersion. He literally moved himself onto the factory floor, slept under a desk right next to the assembly line. He was there, ready to lead this all-in search for every single bottleneck, 247.
That's living at the problem.
The definition of it. And he expected his key people to do the same. Drop everything, fly across the country immediately if needed. There's a story of him flying one critical employee out to the Nevada Gigafactory for 4 months straight just to solve one specific issue holding things up.
Wow. And this intense immersion living on the factory floor, this is where the algorithm really got refined into its final, most potent form.
Exactly. The core process became absolutely fixed in his mind and hammered into the teams. First, find the bottleneck, then ask why repeatedly, like the 5 whys, until you hit the absolute root cause. Then delete, and only then simplify what's left.
Find why, delete, simplify.
That's the loop. And this is where we see maybe his biggest public admission of error. His initial huge mistake in production hell
Was pushing for too much automation too soon.
Right. He got seduced by the sci-fi vision of a fully automated alien dreadnought factory, and it backfired badly. He had to publicly accept responsibility, which is rare for him, but powerful when he does it, saying, quote, "My mistake, humans are underrated."
And the way he corrected it was dramatic.
Extremely dramatic. He became this apostle of de-automation, literally ordering robots to be sawn out of the production line and just thrown into the parking lot if they were slowing things down.
Thrown out. Seriously.
Apparently so. At one point, he even had them cut a hole in the factory building itself just to physically remove some massive piece of equipment that was causing a bottleneck.
That is decisiveness on a whole different level. Physical decisiveness.
It's the ultimate statement, isn't it? The process must serve the goal, not the other way around. If the automation isn't working, get rid of it. Now.
Let's get into those specific examples from the book. They really illustrate this deletion rampage, the fiberglass strips.
Right, so there was this very expensive, very slow robot whose only job was to glue these thin fiberglass strips onto the battery pack. It was a major bottleneck on the line.
Okay, so standard procedure, ask why.
He asked why. He gathered the engineers. Why is the station here? Why these strips? And they couldn't agree. One team mumbled something about fire risk. Another team thought it was for vibration reduction. A third group cited some old specification from a supplier. Nobody had actually named the root requirement or the person who mandated it.
So what happened?
He ordered immediate testing. Right then, right there. Run batteries with the strips, run them without. Measure the difference in noise, vibration, safety, everything.
And the result?
The tests proved the strips made absolutely no measurable difference to performance or safety. Result, delete. Robot gone, strips gone, bottleneck gone.
Just like that. The complexity was just inertia. Amazing. And the plastic caps? Even smaller.
Even smaller, even sillier in hindsight. In the Nevada Gigafactory, automated machines were carefully placing these tiny plastic caps onto battery pins. Protection, supposedly.
Okay, seems reasonable.
Except when the battery packs arrived at the Fremont assembly plant in California, the very first thing the assembly line workers did was manually pull off all those caps and throw them away.
Oh, come on.
Seriously. So again, Musk asks why? Why the caps? The only answer anyone could give was, well, they prevent the pins from getting bent during transport. But nobody knew who originally specified it, or if bent pins were even a real problem. Result: delete. Stop putting the caps on in Nevada. And guess what? No epidemic of bent pins occurred.
It just underscores how bureaucracy doesn't just waste time and money. It literally adds physical objects and process steps that are completely useless.
Exactly. And that whole brutal experience, living through production hell and seeing these absurdities firsthand, that's what led to the ultimate refined algorithm. The 5 commandments. The things executives apparently started mouthing along to in meetings because they heard them constantly.
Okay, lay them out. The 5 commandments.
This is the core operating manual, the mantra.
Question every requirement.
Yeah.
And you must know the name of the person who made it. No hiding behind department.
Got it. Question.
Second, delete any part or process you possibly can, and here's the kicker. He warns, if you don't find yourself having to add back at least 10% of the steps you deleted later on, you probably didn't delete enough in the first place. Be aggressive.
Wow. Delete aggressively. Okay, third.
Third, simplify and organize what remains. Critically, this must come after deleting. Don't simplify something you should have deleted.
Right. Order matters. Fourth,
accelerate cycle time. Make it go faster. But again, this must come after deleting and simplifying. Optimize the speed of the necessary steps.
and finally, fifth.
Fifth, automate. Automation comes absolutely last. Only automate a step once you've questioned it, tried to delete it, simplified it, and accelerated it.
Question. Delete, simplify, accelerate, automate. That's the sequence.
That's the sequence. The order is everything.
Why is step 3, simplify, forced to come after step 2, delete? Why not simplify a complex part first? Then maybe you don't need to delete it.
Because, he argues, if you spend time and resources simplifying something that fundamentally shouldn't exist in the first place, you've just optimized a mistake. You've polished a process step that should have been thrown out entirely.
So you risk perfecting the unnecessary.
Precisely. He believes most organizations jump too quickly to simplifying or automating a fundamentally flawed or unnecessary process. He insists. Radical deletion first. Then simplify what's truly essential. Then, only then, optimize its speed or automate it. It's a powerful defense against, premature optimization.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And he combined this relentless deletion algorithm with a way to focus everyone's attention. Walk to the red.
Yeah, this was a very visual management technique. He had massive monitors installed throughout the factory showing the status of every single station on the assembly line. Big, simple indicators, green or red.
Green means okay. Red means trouble.
Exactly. Red meant a stoppage, a problem, a bottleneck. And his approach was simple. When he walked the floor, he would walk straight to the red lights, ignore the green, go directly to the point of failure,
And then what?
find the root cause right there. Is a part missing? Did a sensor trip unnecessarily? Is the machine broken? And then immediately fix it, or, more likely, start questioning the necessity of the part or the sensor that was causing the failure in the first place, applying the algorithm right at the point of pain.
Constant real-time problem solving focused only on the blockers.
Exactly. And to maintain that speed, that constant intervention, he had to embrace imperfection in decision-making.
The 100 decisions a day thing.
Yeah, he calculated he was making something like 100 significant command decisions every single day during the peak of production hell. And he explicitly acknowledged, look, at least 20% of these are going to be wrong. But if I don't make decisions, if we get stuck in analysis, we die.
So decisiveness, even with errors, trumps slow perfection.
For him, absolutely. Speed and iteration are paramount for survival.
And finally, in this section, this ability he has to learn from everything, it's almost unique. Like resisting LiDAR for self-driving cars.
Right. That was a huge contrarian bet. The rest of the industry was piling into LiDAR. He insisted Tesla focus purely on visual data, cameras, his reasoning, pure first principles. Humans drive perfectly well using only visual data, our eyes. Why should a machine need more complex, expensive sensors?
Distilling the problem down to its essence.
Always. He distills complexity down to these incredibly simple, sometimes almost childlike models, like the tunneling thing for the boring company. Just dig this hole like the gopher in my front yard does. Find the simplest natural analogy.
Yeah, the toy industry example, that's my favorite.
It's brilliant, isn't it? He was playing with a little die-cast toy Model S, like a Hot Wheels car, and he noticed the underbody, the whole chassis, was manufactured as a single metal piece.
And he thought, why can't we do that for real?
Exactly. He went to his engineers and basically said, figure out how to do this. Cast the car's underbody as one giant piece. That demand, inspired by a toy, directly led to them developing the massive GigaPress casting machines, the largest in the world. Revolutionary for car manufacturing.
Just from looking closely at a toy, amazing.
And he looked to Legos, too. For inspiration on high-precision molding, he was amazed that Lego bricks are accurate down to 10 microns.
And his takeaway wasn't about expensive machines.
No, his takeaway was profound. Precision is not expensive. It is mostly about caring. He saw precision primarily as a function of attitude, focus, and refining the process, not just throwing money at fancy equipment. It's about demanding that level of care.
Okay, so as we move into the final section, what really stands out is how these principles, the algorithm, the intensity, the first principles thinking they aren't just applied to products, they're applied relentlessly across every domain, even challenging laws and regulations.
Yeah, he's effectively engineering the law, trying to make regulations conform to the requirements of physics and efficiency, not just accepting them as fixed constraints.
Like challenging the Air Force.
Exactly. He saved, $1.7 million on launch facility cranes simply by challenging decades-old Air Force safety regulations. He argued they were obsolete, based on old technology, and actually convinced the military to revise the rules.
That takes some serious audacity.
And that cost-driven cross-industry sourcing just continued. The bathroom stall latch is a classic.
Instead of a $1,500 NASA part.
He found a standard heavy-duty bathroom stall latch for maybe $30, modified it slightly, proved it met the requirements, and used that instead. Same logic with the air conditioning for the Falcon 9.
Instead of a $3 million custom aerospace solution.
He took commercial $6,000 AC units, the kind you might see on a building, modified them heavily in-house, and made them work for the rocket's cooling system. If the physics works, the source doesn't matter.
Find the cheapest component that meets the physical need, ignore the pedigree.
That's the essence of it. And on a much bigger scale, geopolitically, look at China.
The Shanghai factory.
For 3 decades, China had this law. Foreign car manufacturers had to form a joint venture with a Chinese company to build cars there. It was an ironclad rule.
And Musk challenged it.
Directly. He lobbied the government intensely, arguing his case, pushing back, until they actually changed the law for Tesla, allowing them to build the Shanghai Gigafactory as a wholly owned foreign entity. First time ever.
That's applying question every requirement on a nation-state level.
Pretty much. If a rule blocks the mission, question the rule no matter how big.
Okay, shifting to leadership and hiring. The frontline general idea remains absolutely central, doesn't it?
It's core to his management philosophy. He specifically cited Napoleon, saying something like, if the troops see the general out there on the battlefield with them, they're going to be motivated. He lives that.
And this translates into that non-negotiable rule for his managers.
Absolutely. Managers must have direct, hands-on experience in the actual work they're supervising. No exceptions.
The solar roof story illustrates that perfectly.
Yeah. An engineer who was managing the solar roof division admitted in a meeting he hadn't actually personally installed solar roofs on a house.
And Musk's reaction?
Immediate and brutal. Something like, and you don't expletive know what you're expletive talking about. That manager was apparently up on a roof installing panels the very next day. Lesson learned.
So credibility comes from doing, not just directing.
Absolutely. And when it comes to hiring or promoting people, the emphasis isn't primarily on the resume, the credentials.
It's on attitude.
Attitude. The raw desire and demonstrated ability to work maniacally hard. His logic, according to the sources, is blunt. Technical skills, we can teach those. But that inherent drive, that willingness to operate at extreme intensity, that requires, in his words, basically a brain transplant. You either have it or you don't.
Which naturally leads to this hardcore culture he cultivates. And his deep fear of complacency sitting in.
He seems almost allergic to comfort. The book mentions how terms like psychological safety, which became quite common in Silicon Valley, especially at Twitter, later on actually made him recoil.
Why? What's wrong with psychological safety?
He saw it as the enemy of urgency. He believed that a certain level of discomfort, of pressure, was actually a weapon against complacency, against people settling into mediocrity. Comfort was dangerous to the mission.
That sounds like a tough environment.
Unquestionably. And the mission requires a certain Well, remorselessness sometimes. The sources describe instances where he pushed out long-time, loyal engineers if he felt their intensity was waning or they weren't keeping up.
To maintain the pace?
To maintain the pace and reinforce the message. Physics does not care about hurt feelings. Results are what matter. And this culture gets enforced through his communication style, too.
The rule about bad news.
All bad news should be given loudly and often. Good news can be said quietly and once. He wants problems surfaced immediately, constantly, never hidden or downplayed. Good news takes care of itself.
Wow. Okay. And the extreme urgency just permeates everything. The start of the Boring Company?
Is a perfect case study in sheer speed. He gets this idea about tunnels, calls Steve Davis, who runs it now, at 2 a.m., tells him, start studying quick, inexpensive tunneling methods now.
2 a.m.
Then he calls Davis back just 3 hours later. Davis gives him some preliminary cost estimates for tunnel boring machines, TBMs. Musk's response? Okay, buy 2 of them, the $5 million ones. Have them here when I get back from my trip.
Buy 2 giant machines based on a 3-hour study at dawn.
Zero analysis paralysis, just immediate, high-stakes, decisive action to get the ball rolling instantly.
That speed must mean people learn incredibly fast, though.
That's what employees report. The learning curve is vertical. One person is quoted saying they learned more unique lessons from Elon per minute than any other human I've met. It's trial by fire, constantly.
And if there's a really critical problem, like Starship falling behind schedule,
then the urgency goes into overdrive. He demands meetings every single day. 24-hour cycle, 7 days a week. Running the algorithm, question, delete, simplify, accelerate relentlessly on that one problem until it's solved. No breaks.
and he's constantly reinforcing the core principles, like those company-wide emails.
All the time, emails blast out saying things like, we are on a deletion rampage, nothing is sacred, please go ultra hardcore on deletion and simplification, keeping that pressure constant.
Okay, finally, his gaming philosophy, Polytopia. He really thinks playing a mobile game makes you a better CEO.
He genuinely seems to believe it. He distills several key life and business lessons from playing the strategy game, Polytopia.
Lesson number 1 is pretty jarring.
Yeah. Lesson 1. Empathy, in the context of high-stakes, zero-sum strategic competition, is not necessarily an asset. It can hinder ruthless decision-making.
Second,
Do not fear losing. He apparently says the first 50 times you lose at Polytopia, it really hurts. But after that, you become less emotional about losses, which allows you to take much bigger risks without fear.
interesting.
Third,
Optimize every single turn. In Polytopia, like in life or a business project, you have a finite number of moves, a finite amount of time. If you let even a few turns, a few days or weeks slide without maximum effort, we will never get to Mars. Every moment counts.
and fourth,
Double down. When you have a success, immediately reinvest everything back into the game. Go all in to accelerate growth as aggressively as possible. Echoes of Zib2 and PayPal funding cycles.
it all ties back. And his own state. He prefers being at war.
Seems so. When someone apparently told him, you don't have to live in a constant state of war, his response was telling, it's part of my default settings. Extended periods of calm actually make him uneasy, unnerved. The game is everything.
The dedication to the game, the mission, seems absolute, perfectly captured by that lyric his ex-girlfriend Grimes wrote about him.
He'll always love the game more than he loves me.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, that really brings us to the core takeaway from this whole deep dive. The absolutely staggering scale of what he's accomplished across so many different incredibly hard industries. It's not built on finding some brand new trick for every single problem.
It's built on repetition.
It's built entirely on the unrelenting, obsessive, decades-long application of a fairly small, fixed set of core, almost simple principles. Intensity control, first principles thinking, and that 5-step deletion algorithm.
And whether he's tackling robots or tunnels or software, cars, rockets, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If an idea worked once, like learning from a toy car or acting like a frontline general, you'll use it again and again.
Applying the same philosophy faster, more aggressively, maybe more ruthlessly than pretty much anyone else on the planet.
Which kind of forces us to look at our own work, doesn't it? Our own speed and complexity.
It definitely challenges conventional thinking.
So maybe the challenge we leave everyone listening with, drawn right from these principles, is this. If your timeline feels comfortably long, it's probably already wrong.
Yeah. He believes it's always better to try something, fail fast, learn immediately, than to spend months analyzing an issue into the ground. Bias for action.
Stop assuming you have these arbitrary limits and absolutely resist that natural urge we all have to overcomplicate things, the mantra has to be,
Delete, delete, delete. Question everything. Strip it down.
which leads us to that final provocative thought to leave people chewing on.
Right. Focus on the work, the problem, the mission that truly wouldn't happen without your singular effort, your unique contribution or drive.
Explain that difference.
Well, the book kind of implies building mass-market electric cars. In the grand sweep of history, that was probably inevitable. Someone would have eventually gotten there, maybe slower, maybe differently, but it likely would have happened.
But becoming a truly spacefaring civilization, colonizing Mars,
That is profoundly not inevitable. That requires a specific, almost unreasonable level of drive and vision against incredible odds. So the question becomes, what are you dedicating your limited time, your turns to? Is it something that truly requires you?
that's a heavy question to end on.
It is, but it reframes how you think about impact.
So, wrapping it all up,
Yeah.
whether you look at the outcomes and admire them, or you look at the process and recoil from the intensity, the one thing you can say is,
Both his accomplishments and his failures are just absolutely epic in scale. There's nothing small about it.